He returned unannounced, expecting a quiet night in his mansion, but the storm outside mirrored the storm within. There in the rain he found his twin daughters abandoned, shivering, whispering the one word that would break him: Daddy. Hello family, if you're ready for the full story, make sure you hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Tomorrow, I've got another story that will blow your mind, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Now let's dive in. Ethan Donovan, the man the world called the relentless millionaire, sat in the back seat of his sleek red car as city lights blurred past the tinted glass. Deals had been closed, numbers stacked neatly in his favor, and yet, instead of the satisfaction most men would drink like wine, he felt only emptiness gnawing in his chest. His driver cleared his throat. "Sir, are we going home directly tonight?" Ethan glanced at his watch. Normally, he would have texted his wife first. But tonight, something tugged at him, a restlessness, a gnawing instinct that whispered, "Go home. Just go home." "No," Ethan said, voice low but steady. "Drive me home. Don't call ahead." The driver's eyes flicked up in the mirror, curiosity glinting, but he nodded and turned the wheel toward the private road leading to the Donovan estate. Miles away, inside the Donovan mansion, two small girls sat cross-legged on the nursery floor. Rain tapped against the wide windows, but no one came to tuck them in. No storybook. No soft voice humming them to sleep. Sophie clutched her twin's hand. At just 5 years old, they carried an instinct children should never need, to comfort each other when adults failed. "Why doesn't she want us?" Sophie whispered, her voice barely audible. Her sister, Emma, swallowed hard. "Daddy will come back. He promised." They looked at the door, waiting for footsteps that never came. Their stepmother's laughter, muffled through the walls, was distant, detached, not meant for them. Back in the car, Ethan scrolled absently through his messages. His wife, Clarissa, had sent a short note earlier: dinner plans. "Don't wait up." He frowned. A flash of irritation pierced through him, but he pushed it aside. After all, hadn't he promised himself that this marriage, unlike the last, would be different? Stable. Secure. Perfect on paper. Yet deep down he knew. The cracks had always been there, hidden beneath designer gowns, charity galas, and forced smiles in photographs. A clap of thunder rumbled. Ethan glanced at the storm beating against the glass. Something cold settled in his gut. The mansion loomed as the car rolled up the long drive, its grand windows glowing faintly against the storm. Normally, he admired its majesty, the symbol of everything he had built. Tonight, it looked hollow. "Wait here," Ethan told his driver. He stepped out, rain pelting his tailored suit. The gravel crunched under his shoes as he approached the door. His hand hesitated on the knob. "Why am I nervous in my own house?" Inside, silence greeted him. No running footsteps. No laughter. Just silence. He frowned. "Clarissa." His voice echoed in the marble foyer. No answer. He loosened his tie, scanning the vast emptiness, until something caught his attention, a faint sound carried by the storm. Not from inside. From outside. A cry. Ethan's chest tightened. He followed it, heart pounding. He pushed open the back doors leading to the garden and froze. There in the rain, huddled together near the steps, were Sophie and Emma. Their small arms wrapped around each other, soaked to the bone, shivering violently. His heart stopped. "Sophie? Emma?" His voice cracked as he rushed forward. The girls looked up. Emma's lips quivered. "Daddy," she whispered. In that instant, everything he had built, money, power, walls of steel around his heart, shattered. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm raging inside him. He scooped them up, their wet clothes clinging to his arms. They clutched at him desperately, as though afraid he might vanish too. Who left you here?" he demanded, but the words sounded weak, stupid even, against the sight of their fragile bodies. Sophie's eyes welled with tears. She said you didn't want us." The words hit harder than any business betrayal. Ethan staggered back into the house, carrying them close. His vision blurred with fury and disbelief. "Clarissa." He set the girls down on the sofa, grabbed blankets, wrapped them tightly, his hands trembling. He wanted to ask questions, but their little faces silenced him. They needed warmth, safety, not interrogation. Daddy's here, he whispered, voice thick. You're safe. I swear to you, you're safe. But deep inside, one truth already sank its claws into him. His marriage was a facade. His wealth had not protected his daughters. He had trusted the wrong woman, and nearly lost the two souls who mattered most. And as he held them, the storm raging beyond the glass, Ethan Donovan knew, nothing in his life would ever be the same again. If you walked into Ethan's mansion and found two innocent little girls abandoned in the rain, what would your very first reaction be? Anger, heartbreak, or something else? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might surprise someone reading. The storm outside thundered like a furious drum, its rhythm matching the chaos inside Ethan Donovan's chest. The sight of Sophie and Emma, his 5-year-old daughters, soaked, trembling, and clutching one another on the velvet sofa, burned into him like fire. His hands shook as he tucked the blanket tighter around them, trying to chase away the chill. But no matter how many times he whispered, "You're safe now," the guilt clawed at him. What happened? His voice was hoarse, trembling with a desperation that frightened even him. Who put you outside? The twins exchanged a glance, hesitant, fragile, like two little birds afraid to sing. Emma was the first to whisper. She said, "You don't want us anymore." The words didn't just wound. They gutted him. Ethan staggered back, gripping the edge of the coffee table, his breath ragged. Clarissa's voice echoed in his head, smooth, cultured, manipulative. "Darling, trust me. The children are fine. You focus on business, I'll take care of the home." He had believed her. Trusted her. And now this. His anger rose like the storm outside. He pushed off the table, pacing the room like a caged animal. The mansion's grandeur suddenly looked obscene. Golden chandeliers, marble floors, priceless art, all gleaming, all useless. None of it had shielded his daughters from cruelty. "Where is she now?" he asked, forcing calm into his voice though it cracked with fury. Sophie fiddled with the blanket hem. She left before the rain came. She said she was going out to see her friends. Ethan's jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Out drinking, out laughing, while two little girls sat outside in a storm. He sank to his knees in front of them, taking their tiny hands into his. Their fingers were icy, their nails dirty, their hair wet and tangled. He studied every detail as though memorizing proof of his failure. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, forehead bowing against their hands. "This should never have happened. Not to you. Not ever." Sophie's lip trembled. Are we going away now?" The question snapped his head up. "What do you mean?" Emma's small voice wavered. "She told us, you'd send us away when you got tired of us." The room tilted. Ethan pressed his palms into the carpet, swallowing the bile that rose in his throat. Clarissa hadn't just neglected them. She had poisoned them. Planted fear where love should have grown. "No," Ethan said firmly, pulling both girls into his arms. "Listen to me, look at me." He tilted their chins until they met his eyes. His voice broke, but his vow was steel. "You are my daughters. My heart. My life. Nothing, no one, will take you from me. Ever." They clung to him then, small arms wrapping around his neck, their sobs breaking free. Their tears soaked his shirt, but he welcomed them, each drop a confession of pain they should never have carried. The storm pounded harder. Lightning illuminated the room in harsh white flashes. For the first time in years, Ethan felt utterly powerless. Not in a boardroom, not in negotiations, but in the quiet devastation of fatherhood laid bare. He glanced toward the door, rage boiling. He wanted to confront Clarissa, demand answers, unleash the fury clawing inside him. But the sight of Sophie and Emma stopped him. His daughters needed him present here now, not storming out after the woman who had broken them. A decision crystallized in his chest. The empire he had built meant nothing if his home was poisoned. From tonight forward, his wealth would no longer build walls. It would build a fortress of love and safety for these girls. He kissed Sophie's damp hair, then Emma's trembling cheek. "You'll never be alone again," he vowed. "I promise." They didn't answer with words, only held tighter. For a moment, Ethan closed his eyes, letting the storm rage outside while a different storm settled inside him. He had returned home unannounced and in doing so, uncovered the most brutal truth of his life. His daughters had been abandoned not just by Clarissa, but by his own blindness. And yet, in this heartbreak, he felt something stir. A strange, fragile, terrifying thing. It was love, raw, unguarded, demanding. Love he had never allowed himself to fully feel until now. The grandfather clock in the hall struck midnight. Clarissa still hadn't returned. The storm howled on. Ethan sat with his daughters cradled in his arms, staring into the fire he had lit to warm them. Flames crackled, casting shadows across the grand room. Shadows of betrayal. Shadows of redemption waiting to be claimed. And though fury smoldered in his veins, he knew one thing with absolute clarity: this night had changed everything. Forever. If you were Ethan, would you confront Clarissa immediately that night, or focus entirely on comforting the girls first? Drop your thoughts below. I'm curious which choice you think shows true strength. The storm had quieted by morning, but the house felt heavier than ever. Clouds still pressed low over the Donovan estate, the gray light seeping through tall windows and stretching shadows across the marble floor. Ethan hadn't slept. He had stayed in the nursery all night, curled awkwardly in the rocking chair, his daughters huddled in their beds beneath freshly laundered blankets. Every time Sophie whimpered or Emma shifted, he was instantly awake, checking, reassuring, whispering, "Daddy's here." But the truth gnawed at him like a relentless rat. He had trusted Clarissa. Trusted her to care for them. To love them. And while he built an empire, his girls had been left in the rain. He rose stiffly, rolling the tension from his shoulders, and slipped out of the nursery. Downstairs, his phone buzzed with relentless notifications, emails, missed calls, reminders of board meetings and contracts waiting for his signature. He silenced it. For the first time in years, business could wait. In the kitchen, he tried to make breakfast himself, something he hadn't done since college. He burned the first attempt at toast and cursed under his breath. The coffee tasted bitter. The eggs were rubbery. But when he carried the plates upstairs, Sophie and Emma sat up slowly, blinking with sleepy eyes, and something softened in his chest. "I made breakfast," he said, trying for a smile. Sophie's small nose wrinkled. "It smells funny." He chuckled, setting the tray down. "That's because Daddy's not as good as the chef." Emma touched the edge of the plate, but didn't take a bite. Her big eyes searched his face, full of mistrust that twisted his gut. "You're not leaving today," she whispered. Ethan froze. How many times had they watched him walk out the door, briefcase in hand, promising he'd be back soon? "No," he said firmly, crouching down to meet their eyes. "I'm not going anywhere. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not without you." Still, Emma's shoulders tensed. Sophie leaned against her sister, seeking comfort. They didn't believe him. Not fully. Not yet. Later that morning, Clarissa returned. The slam of the front door echoed like a gunshot through the house. Ethan's blood boiled instantly. He strode down the staircase, meeting her in the foyer. Her designer heels clicked against marble, raincoat draped over her arm, hair perfectly styled. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine, not a storm. "Oh, you're home," she said casually, as though nothing had happened. His jaw clenched. "Where were you?" Her brows lifted, a picture of feigned innocence. "Dinner with friends, of course." "Why? Did I miss something?" "Something." His voice thundered. "You left my daughters in the rain." For the first time, her expression faltered. They were exaggerating. "I told them to stay inside. If they didn't listen, that's hardly my—" "Don't you dare," Ethan snapped, stepping closer, fury radiating from him. "Don't you dare blame them. They're children. Our children. And you abandoned them." Clarissa's lips curled. "Your children, Ethan. Not mine." The words landed like poison. Ethan's hands shook, fists trembling at his sides. Upstairs, the twins sat on the top step, small bodies pressed together, listening. Sophie's eyes brimmed with tears. Emma hugged her knees, whispering, "He's going to send us away. He always chooses her." The fight burned for an hour. Clarissa denied, deflected, rolled her eyes, accused him of overreacting. Ethan roared back, voice echoing through the hollow mansion. But beneath the fury lurked guilt. Clarissa's cold indifference forced him to face an unbearable truth: he had chosen her. He had brought her into their lives. He had been blind. When Clarissa finally stormed out, slamming the door, The silence was deafening. Ethan leaned heavily against the banister, dragging a hand down his face. His body shook with exhaustion. And then he saw them, Sophie and Emma, wide-eyed at the top of the stairs, fear carved into their little faces. Girls, he reached for them, but they shrank back slightly, mistrust flashing. Daddy, Sophie whispered, are you going with her? The question pierced deeper than any argument. No. His voice cracked as he climbed the stairs slowly, kneeling in front of them. No, I'm not going anywhere. Not with her. Not without you. Ever again. Emma studied him, searching for lies. At last she murmured, you always say you're busy. Ethan closed his eyes, shame flooding him. They were right. He had said it 100 times. Busy later, tomorrow. Words that had left them alone too often. He opened his eyes again, fierce with new resolve. Not anymore. You are more important than every deal, every company, every meeting. Do you hear me? You are everything. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Sophie slid forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. Emma hesitated, then joined. Their trust wasn't whole, but it flickered fragile, like the first light breaking through storm clouds. That night, Ethan sat by their beds again, watching their tiny chests rise and fall. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, calls from lawyers, investors, reporters. He ignored them all. For once, the battle he fought wasn't in the market. It was here in this room, against his own past mistakes. And as the storm clouds outside began to part, Ethan wondered if his daughters would ever truly believe him, or if the damage had already been done. Do you think children ever forget the moments when adults fail them, or do those scars always stay? Comment below. I'd love to know what you believe about forgiveness and trust. The Donovan estate had never felt so small. For years, Ethan had roamed its cavernous halls like a king in a fortress. But with Clarissa gone, her suitcases hastily packed after their explosive fight, the house felt less like a fortress and more like a prison. Every room echoed with silence. Every corner reminded him of the choices that had led here. The staff, following discreet instructions, had retreated for the week. No chef, no maids, no assistants bustling about. It was just Ethan and the twins now, 3 souls in a mansion designed for 20. He had thought his wealth made life easier. But tonight, staring into the open refrigerator and realizing he had no idea how to make a proper dinner for 2 little girls, he felt more powerless than ever. Are we staying here now? Sophie asked, peeking into the kitchen doorway, her small voice barely louder than the hum of the fridge. Yes, Ethan said. He shut the fridge and turned to face both of them. For as long as you want. This is your home. No one will make you leave. Emma tugged at her damp curls. What about her? Ethan's jaw tightened. She won't be coming back. They exchanged a glance, half relief, half suspicion. Ethan tried for a smile. How about we order pizza? Sophie's eyes flickered with curiosity. You eat pizza? The question made him laugh, a deep sound that startled even him. Of course I eat pizza. I wasn't always rich, you know. Emma tilted her head. What were you then? The question caught him off guard. For a moment, memories flashed. His childhood in a cramped apartment, nights when dinner was just bread and milk, the constant fear of being left behind. He swallowed hard, pushing it back. I was just a boy who wanted to be someone, he said softly. But tonight, I just want to be your dad. They ate together at the long dining table, the pizza boxes looking out of place against polished mahogany and crystal candlesticks. Sophie giggled when Ethan dripped cheese on his tie. Emma, still cautious, studied him quietly but allowed a tiny smile when he made silly faces with breadsticks. After dinner, the storm knocked out the power. The mansion plunged into darkness, save for the glow of lightning flashing through tall windows. The twins gasped and clung to each other. Ethan moved quickly, finding candles and setting them around the room. Their warm glow softened the house, making it feel less intimidating, almost cozy. Better? He asked. Sophie nodded. Emma whispered, it feels like a storybook. That gave Ethan an idea. Later, they huddled on the rug in front of the fireplace. The twins curled beneath a blanket, their heads resting against his chest, while he held an old leather-bound book he hadn't opened in years. His voice filled the quiet as he read aloud. At first, it was stiff, uncertain, the words strange on his tongue. But slowly, as Sophie laughed at the silly characters and Emma whispered questions about the story, his voice softened. He had forgotten how much he loved this, reading, sharing, watching little faces light up. When he closed the book, Sophie's eyes drooped sleepily. "Read another," she murmured. "It's late," Ethan said gently, brushing hair from her forehead. Emma stirred, her voice small. "Will you stay here tonight? Not go away?" The plea struck him like a knife. He tightened his arms around them. "Yes. I'll stay. For as many nights as you need me." They fell asleep there, nestled against him, while the fire crackled low. Ethan leaned his head back, exhaustion pulling at him, but for the first time in years, his heart felt full. And yet, beneath the fragile peace, fear lurked. Trust was not rebuilt in a single night. He knew the twins still doubted him, that every broken promise of the past weighed on their little shoulders. But here, in the glow of candlelight, he felt the beginning of something fragile but real. Love. The storm outside had passed, leaving silence in its wake. The silence wasn't empty now, it was alive, filled with the soft breathing of his daughters. And Ethan Donovan, the man who had once thought himself invincible, realized he was terrified. Because for the first time in his life, he had something far more precious than money to lose. Do you think trust is built faster through grand gestures or through small, consistent moments like this? Reading by candlelight, sharing pizza, staying close? Share your thoughts below. Your answer might help someone struggling to rebuild trust right now. Morning sunlight filtered weakly through gauzy curtains, painting long stripes across the nursery floor. Sophie and Emma were still asleep, tangled in their blankets, their small faces soft in dreams. Ethan lingered at the doorway, watching them with an ache he couldn't quite name. How many mornings like this had I missed? He leaned against the frame, exhaustion pulling at him, but his mind wouldn't let him rest. Every glance at their delicate faces carried a silent accusation. He had been there for every investor meeting, every boardroom presentation, every ribbon-cutting ceremony. But not here. Not for them. The sound of shuffling drew him back. Emma sat up, rubbing her eyes. Sophie blinked awake moments later. "You stayed," Sophie mumbled, voice husky with sleep. Ethan smiled faintly. "I told you I would." Emma's eyes searched his, still testing. "You won't change your mind?" "Never," Ethan said, crouching by their beds. "I've made mistakes, but I'll never make that one again." Later that day, while the twins colored at the coffee table, Ethan busied himself tidying the living room. His eyes caught on the small pile of drawings they had left scattered on the floor. He picked one up, and froze. The page was covered in blue crayon scribbles, jagged lines of rain falling over two small stick figures huddled together. Above them, a larger figure loomed, arms crossed, face scowling. In the corner, another stick figure stood far away, briefcase in hand. Ethan's chest tightened. He sat down hard on the sofa, the picture trembling in his hands. Emma glanced up. "That one's mine." Her voice was casual, but her eyes betrayed the storm inside her. Ethan swallowed. "Is that me?" She hesitated, then nodded. The figure with the briefcase, absent, distant. His throat closed. "I didn't know you felt that way." Emma shifted uncomfortably, but Sophie piped up. "She always said you didn't care. That you liked your money more than us." Clarissa's venom, spoken through innocent lips. Ethan pressed his fist against his mouth, trying to steady the quake in his chest. He wanted to rage, to curse Clarissa's name, but the girls needed more than fury. They needed truth. "Listen to me," Ethan said, his voice raw. He crouched down in front of them, holding the drawing carefully. I thought if I gave you everything, this house, toys, security, that you'd never feel what I felt growing up." The twins blinked, curiosity dawning. "What did you feel?" Sophie asked softly. Ethan drew a deep breath. "Alone." The word hung in the air. Heavy. Honest. "My parents worked themselves to the bone. We lived in a tiny apartment. Most nights, it was just me and an old lamp for company. I promised myself that when I grew up, I'd give my children everything I never had. But I forgot something." He paused, eyes stinging. "Things don't matter. Presence does." Emma stared at him, her lip trembling. "So, you do want us?" The question shattered him. He gathered both girls into his arms, holding them so tightly he feared he might break them. "I want you more than anything," he whispered fiercely. "You are my everything. My reason. My heart. I failed you before, but I will spend the rest of my life proving that I'll never fail you again." The twins clung to him, silent tears soaking his shirt. Sophie's small hand fisted in his collar, as though anchoring herself. Emma pressed her face into his chest, her sob muffled but shaking with years of pent-up fear. And in that moment, Ethan realized the depth of their wounds. They had lived under suspicion, lies, and neglect for so long that the truth, that they were wanted, treasured, felt like a foreign language. Healing them would not be instant. But it had begun. That night, as he tucked them into bed, Sophie whispered, "Daddy." "Yes, sweetheart." "Do you think people can really change?" The question caught him. It wasn't just about Clarissa. It was about him. He brushed her hair back gently. "Yes. People can change. But only if they want to, with their whole heart. And I do. For you. For both of you." Emma's eyes glistened in the dim light. "Promise." He kissed her forehead. "Promise." Hours later, long after they'd fallen asleep, Ethan sat alone in his study. The crayon drawing lay on his desk, illuminated by the lamp. His empire, contracts, portfolios, headlines, surrounded him. Yet it was the childish picture of rain and stick figures that stripped him bare. The truth was undeniable. The boy with the briefcase had grown into the man with the empire. And in the process, he had almost become the very thing he had once despised, absent, unreachable. But now he had a chance. A second chance. And he wouldn't waste it. Do you believe people truly change, or do they only reveal who they've always been deep down? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to see where you stand on this. The weekend passed in a rhythm Ethan had never known before. Not board meetings. Not conference calls. Not charity galas. Instead, pancakes. Cartoons. Coloring books sprawled across the coffee table. Little voices filling the halls with laughter. On Saturday morning, Ethan stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, a spatula clutched like a weapon. He frowned at the frying pan where a misshapen pancake sizzled unevenly. Sophie giggled from her stool. "Daddy, it looks like a dinosaur." Emma wrinkled her nose. "No, it looks like a shoe." Ethan flipped it clumsily, sending batter splattering across the counter. "It's a very abstract pancake," he said, pretending to be serious. "Only great chefs make them." The twins burst out laughing, their voices like bells. For a man who once measured his worth in stock prices, their laughter was the richest currency he'd ever known. After breakfast, they ventured outside. The sun had broken through after days of rain, the estate garden sparkling with droplets like jewels. Sophie darted across the lawn barefoot, arms outstretched like wings. "Catch me," she shouted. Ethan gave chase, his polished shoes sinking into the grass. He hadn't run like this in years, lungs burning, heart pounding, but he didn't care. Emma squealed as he scooped her up mid-run, spinning until they both collapsed into the grass, laughing breathlessly. For a fleeting moment, he wasn't Ethan Donovan, millionaire tycoon. He was simply Daddy. That evening, they curled up on the sofa with blankets and popcorn. Sophie leaned against his arm, Emma tucked herself close on his other side. The television flickered with an animated movie, but Ethan hardly watched. He was too busy memorizing the curve of Sophie's smile, the warmth of Emma's small hand resting on his. Halfway through, Sophie whispered, "Do you think Mommy ever really liked us?" The question landed heavy. Ethan's chest tightened. He glanced down at their upturned faces, so open, so fragile. "I think," he said slowly, choosing each word, "sometimes people don't know how to love the way we need them to. And that's not your fault. You are lovable, so lovable, just as you are." Emma's eyes glistened, and she pressed closer. Sophie sighed, laying her head back down. In their silence, Ethan felt something shift. Not everything was healed, but a seed of trust had been planted. Sunday brought rain again, but this time it didn't feel like sorrow. Instead, it became adventure. They built a blanket fort in the living room, stacking pillows and draping sheets like castle walls. Inside, armed with flashlights and stuffed animals, They declared themselves knights. "You have to say the magic words before you can come in," Emma said sternly, blocking the fort's entrance. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Magic words?" Sophie crossed her arms, imitating her sister's seriousness. "Yes. You must say, 'I promise never to leave again.'" The words stabbed deep. Ethan knelt on the carpet, meeting their eyes. "I promise," he whispered. "I promise never to leave again." The twins exchanged a glance, then pulled him into the fort. Inside, under blankets and soft laughter, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt since childhood: belonging. That night, as rain pattered against the windows, Ethan tucked the girls into bed. They clung to him, begging for one more story. When the last page was turned, Sophie looked up, sleepy-eyed. "Daddy, today was my favorite day ever." Emma nodded, already half asleep. "Mine too." Ethan brushed their hair gently, his throat thick. "It was my favorite too." He stayed until their breathing evened out, then sat in the dim room, just watching them. He realized then, this was what he had been chasing all along. Not the empire. Not the accolades. Not the endless climb. This. Two little girls who needed him, and who, against all odds, were beginning to believe he could be theirs. But beneath the warmth, a shadow lingered. He knew Clarissa wasn't finished. He knew storms had a way of circling back. And though tonight ended with laughter and love, a deeper test was waiting. One that could break everything they had just begun to build. Which do you think creates stronger family bonds? Big trips and gifts, or small, everyday moments like pancakes, blanket forts, and bedtime stories? Leave a comment. I'd love to know what you believe makes love last. It was Wednesday evening when the knock came. Sharp. Cold. Unwelcome. Ethan had just returned from tucking Sophie and Emma into bed. He frowned, crossing the grand foyer, every instinct screaming. He opened the door, and there she was. Clarissa. Perfectly styled hair. Designer coat. Lipstick that gleamed even in the dim porch light. Her eyes slid past him toward the staircase. "Where are my girls?" The words were syrupy, but Ethan heard the venom beneath. "They're asleep," he said, his voice clipped. "You have no right to be here." She smirked. "I'm still their mother. That gives me every right." Rage boiled in him, but before he could respond, soft footsteps padded down the stairs. "Mommy." Sophie's small voice trembled in the hallway. Ethan spun. Girls, back to bed. But they had already seen her. Emma clutched Sophie's hand, both of them frozen halfway down the stairs, eyes wide and conflicted. Clarissa's smile widened. "Sweethearts. Come give Mommy a hug." It was chaos after that. Sophie broke free first, running into Clarissa's arms, desperate for the love she had always craved. Emma lingered, torn, then followed, hesitant, but unable to resist the pull. Ethan stood rooted, fury and helplessness warring in him. His daughters, the very center of his being, clinging to the woman who had left them in the rain. He swallowed hard. "Girls, go upstairs. Now." Clarissa stroked Sophie's hair, feigning tenderness. "You see? They still love me. You can't erase me, Ethan." "Love isn't the same as trust," he ground out. "And you destroyed theirs." But when he looked at Sophie's face, he faltered. She was smiling through tears, clinging to her mother's neck. And Emma, though quieter, leaned against Clarissa's side. The sight broke him. That night, after Clarissa finally left with a promise to return soon, the twins were restless. Sophie cried into her pillow. Emma stared silently at the ceiling. Ethan sat on the edge of their bed, at a loss. "She abandoned you," he whispered. "Don't you remember?" Sophie shook her head fiercely. "She came back. You don't understand. She chose us this time." The words stabbed him. "Sweetheart," Ethan said softly, "coming back doesn't erase what she did. Love is shown through actions, not promises." But Sophie pulled away, curling toward the wall. "You're just mad because she loves us too." Ethan froze. Emma's quiet voice followed, fragile and trembling. "What if she really means it this time? What if you're wrong?" And there it was, their doubt. The seed of mistrust, planted by Clarissa's manipulation, watered by their own longing. Later, alone in his study, Ethan slammed his fist against the desk. Papers scattered, but the ache inside remained. You fool, he thought bitterly. You thought a few pancakes and bedtime stories could erase years of absence. You thought they'd forget so easily. The truth hit hard. Love wasn't just about showing up now. It was about fighting for them against every shadow, every lie, even against their own misplaced hope. But in his despair, he heard Clarissa's voice in his mind, cold and mocking, "They'll always choose me." For the first time in years, Ethan doubted himself. The next morning at breakfast, the tension snapped. "Daddy," Sophie said, fiddling with her spoon. "Can Mommy come live here again?" The question shattered the fragile peace. Ethan's hand stilled midair. "No," he said firmly. "Why not?" Sophie's voice rose, defiance lacing her words. "She's our mommy. Because she hurt you. Because she left you. But you left too." The silence after those words was deafening. Emma gasped softly. Sophie's face burned red, but she didn't take it back. And Ethan felt his world collapse. He rose slowly, forcing calm he didn't feel. "You're right," he said hoarsely. "I did leave. And I'll regret it until the day I die. But the difference is, I came back for you. I came back to stay." Sophie's eyes filled with tears, but she turned away, shoulders shaking. Emma reached for her sister, but the distance had already settled like a wall between them and their father. Ethan watched, helpless, as the fragile bond they had built began to unravel. That night, after they finally cried themselves to sleep, Ethan sat by their beds again. His hands trembled as he brushed hair from their faces. "Please," he whispered, voice breaking. "Please don't give up on me. I'll never give up on you." But the only answer was the sound of their uneven breathing, and the hollow echo of his own regret. The storm had returned. And this time, he wasn't sure if love alone would be enough to survive it. What's harder to forgive, someone who left you once, or someone who keeps leaving and coming back with promises? Share your answer in the comments. This one's tough, and I'd love to hear your take. The house felt colder than usual. It wasn't the autumn breeze slipping through the tall windows. It wasn't even the echo of Clarissa's perfume still clinging to the foyer. It was silence, the heavy, aching silence of hearts divided. Ethan sat alone in his study, a glass of untouched scotch on the desk. The amber liquid caught the dim lamplight, but he didn't drink. His thoughts were too sharp, too heavy. Maybe Sophie's right, he admitted to himself. Maybe I'm no better than her. I left too. I abandoned them in my own way. The confession made his chest ache. He remembered the years he had spent traveling, chasing contracts, building an empire so vast it consumed every corner of his life. He remembered the birthdays missed, the school recitals skipped, the nights Clarissa had assured him, "Don't worry, I'll handle the girls." He thought he was providing, protecting, loving them the only way he knew how. But now, staring into the silence, he wondered if his daughters would ever believe that. Upstairs, Sophie and Emma lay in their beds, but neither slept. Sophie whispered into the dark, "Do you think Daddy hates me now?" Emma rolled toward her, eyes wide. "No. He could never hate you." "But I hurt him," Sophie said, her voice breaking. "I said he left us. I made him sad." Emma bit her lip. "He did leave sometimes, but he came back. He always comes back now." Silence stretched between them. The storm inside them mirrored the one inside their father. Sophie sniffled. "I just wanted Mommy to love us. I wanted it to be real this time." Emma reached for her hand. "Maybe love isn't about who says the prettiest words. Maybe it's about who stays." The thought settled, fragile but powerful. In the study, Ethan pushed aside the scotch and opened his drawer. His hand brushed against a folded piece of paper, one of Sophie's drawings. He unfolded it slowly. It was messy, childlike, 3 stick figures holding hands under a sun. Daddy, Sophie, Emma written in colorful block letters. He felt tears burn his eyes. "This is all I want," he whispered. "Just them. Just us." But how could he make them believe it? The next morning dawned gray, drizzle tapping softly against the windows. Ethan lingered in the doorway of the dining room, watching his daughters pick at their cereal. Their usual chatter was gone. Sophie avoided his gaze. Emma offered small smiles, but they didn't reach her eyes. Finally, Ethan walked in, sliding into the chair across from them. "I need to say something," he began, voice rough. Both girls looked up, wary. "I've made mistakes," he continued. "So many. I thought working hard, giving you everything money could buy, was the same as loving you. But it wasn't. And I can't take back the years I wasn't here. I can only promise this," he paused, swallowing hard. "I'm here now. And I'm not leaving again. Not for work. Not for anyone." The girls said nothing. Their silence pierced deeper than any argument. Sophie's spoon clinked against her bowl as she pushed it away. "But Mommy said she'll come back too," she whispered. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. "She might come back, Sophie. But love isn't about who leaves and returns with promises. Love is about who stays, even when it's hard. Even when it hurts." For a long moment, Sophie's lips trembled, caught between loyalty to a dream and trust in a father. Emma slipped her hand into her sister's. "He's right," she said softly. "He's still here." Tears welled in Sophie's eyes, but she didn't pull away. That afternoon, Ethan made a choice. He canceled meetings. He silenced his phone. He let the empire wait. Instead, he invited the girls into his world, not the world of business, but the world he had hidden. He took them into his workshop at the back of the house, a place he hadn't opened in years. Dusty canvases leaned against the walls, paints dried in their jars. "You paint?" Emma asked, eyes wide. Ethan smiled faintly. "I used to. Before life got busy." Sophie stepped closer, touching a half-finished canvas of a sunrise. "It's beautiful." He looked at them, then at the brush in his hand. "Maybe we can finish it together." And so they painted. Clumsy strokes, splatters of color, giggles that began hesitant but grew freer. By the time the sun dipped low, the canvas glowed with a riot of colors, messy, imperfect, alive. Ethan stepped back, heart swelling. This is us," he murmured. Sophie glanced at him, something shifting in her eyes. Not forgiveness yet, but hope. That night, the girls asked him to read again. This time, Sophie didn't curl away. She leaned against his arm, quiet but present. And though no words were spoken, Ethan knew a choice had been made, not final, not absolute, but a step. They hadn't given up on him. Not yet. When trust is broken, what matters more in healing? Big promises, or small consistent actions? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's see what wisdom we can share together. The storm came again on Friday night. Rain hammered the mansion's tall windows, lightning flashed across the horizon, and thunder rattled the glass panes. For Ethan, the sound was an echo, a cruel reminder of the night he had found his daughter shivering, abandoned in the rain. He paced the study, heart pounding, as if the storm itself wanted to test whether his promises meant anything. Then a soft knock came. Not at the door, but at the study entrance. Emma stood there, clutching a blanket. "Daddy." Sophie's scared. Ethan's heart clenched. He didn't hesitate. In their bedroom, Sophie was curled up, trembling. Her eyes darted toward the window with every crack of thunder. When she saw Ethan, she leapt into his arms, clinging so tightly he felt her desperation in every small hand gripping his shirt. "Don't let her come back," she whispered through sobs. "Please don't let Mommy take us away." Ethan's breath caught. The storm outside roared, but the one in his daughter's chest was louder. "She won't," he said firmly, pulling both girls close. "Not now, not ever. No one is taking you from me." Sophie buried her face into his shoulder. Emma pressed against his side. And in that moment, Ethan felt something click into place, something he had been chasing for years without realizing it. He wasn't just their provider. He wasn't just the man who had come home late with gifts. He was their father. Fully, completely, irrevocably. The storm raged into the night, but inside the room there was warmth. They built a fort of blankets between the beds, using chairs and pillows. Ethan crawled inside with them, flashlight in hand, telling silly stories until the thunder faded into laughter. At one point, Sophie looked up at him, her eyes red but steady. "You stayed," she whispered, almost testing the words. "I'll always stay," Ethan answered, his voice thick with truth. Emma nodded, clutching his arm. Even if it storms forever? Even then, he said, kissing their foreheads. Especially then. The words weren't grand. They weren't polished. But they were everything the girls needed. The next morning, the sky was clear, the grass sparkling with dew. Together, they stepped outside. Sophie hesitated at the threshold, remembering too vividly the rain that had once soaked her bones. But Ethan held out his hand, steady and sure. "Want to try again?" he asked. Her small fingers slid into his. Emma took the other hand. And as they stepped into the morning sun, Ethan felt the sting of tears. Because this time, the rain wasn't abandonment. It was cleansing. Renewal. A chance to begin again. They walked to the garden where toys still lay scattered, relics of that terrible night. Ethan knelt, picking up a sodden teddy bear, brushing the dirt off gently. "This," he said softly, "isn't how your story ends. Not in the rain. Not in fear." Sophie looked at him, a flicker of trust breaking through. "How does it end then?" He smiled, pulling them close. "With us. Together. Always." The weeks that followed were not perfect, but they were real. Ethan adjusted his schedule, carving time for school runs, bedtime routines, even painting projects. Clarissa tried once more to slither her way back, but this time, the girls turned away themselves. "We already have what we need," Emma told her with quiet strength. And Sophie, though her eyes shone with tears, added firmly, "Daddy stays." Clarissa left without a fight. Months later, the finished painting hung in the foyer. Bright, messy, filled with 3 figures under a golden sky. Visitors admired it, but to Ethan and the twins, it was more than art, it was a promise. Every morning, he touched the frame as he left for the day. Every evening, he returned on time, greeted by laughter that echoed through the halls. The mansion was no longer a place of silence. It was a home. One evening, as Ethan tucked the girls into bed, Sophie whispered, "Daddy, do you think love can start over?" Ethan brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart. Love can always start over. As long as we choose it." Emma snuggled closer, sighing with contentment. "Then I choose you." Sophie nodded, eyes finally free of fear. "Me too." And Ethan, his heart, once heavy with guilt and regret, felt whole. For the first time, he believed the truth. Love had not been lost. It had simply been waiting for the storm to pass. Do you believe love can truly start over after it's been broken? Or once trust is shattered, is it gone forever? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.